Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at A Stetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 272, and I guess we've got a little bit to talk about this week because Spurs finally went and did it. They sacked the manager, and they've got a replacement, and there is plenty to discuss. I've got Todd alongside to do it. He is at TC_Kasho. Todd, what is up, my friend?
Brother, any day that you can talk about our beloved Tottenham Hotspur smacking the hell out of Aston Villa 7-3 is a good fucking day. That's obviously a conversation we'll have a little bit later on in the day. And of course, we're speaking about the women's team who smoked Aston Villa today. That's where my focus is. I don't know about you. I guess some stuff happened that's kind of important on the men's side. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, real fun, real fun. You brought it up. I mean, we are going to get into. I like to save the best for last, and so far this season, Spurs Women has been the best part of the podcast. So I would
That's
like to
fair
put the cherry on top of the sundae, if you will. But yeah, let's start on the men's side of things because Tuesday happened and then Wednesday happened is basically what you can say. I mean, you and I recorded our last pod Monday evening, and we said, hey, we're not going to talk a lot about the Newcastle match because it was being played a day later, and they sure did play it. I don't have a lot to say about it, but they did play it. Spurs lost that match 2-1, and the next day, sure enough, they sacked Thomas Frank. We've been talking about it for weeks, if not months now. It's been overdue. It's been time, and Spurs went and did it. Let me start this conversation by first just saying, what was your immediate reaction? One of relief? Was it one of surprise at all? Was it what was your immediate emotion when you heard the news?
Frustration that the powers that be made us wait he should have been sacked after the Arsenal match. I've long held that he proved in the lead up to that match and in the match itself that he did not have what it took to be the manager of Tottenham Hotspur at this time in his tenure as a head coach. And then we just got to watch a slow decline of both the results on the pitch and the health and fitness of our squad and the morale of our fan base over the course of the next 2.5 months. So again, and then to have the window just kind of peter out the way that it did and just limp into the second half of the season with no reinforcements, no real direction, no real hope we were so deflated. It was a numb feeling going into that match at Newcastle. And honestly, the anticipation, the hope going into that match was, well, if we play bad enough, maybe this will be the one that actually finally does it. So in the fact that it actually was, there was relief there. But mostly it was frustration. It was bitter feelings toward the Vinay Ben Kateshin and Johan Lange duo that even in the wake of the firing itself, it comes out they still wanted to keep Thomas Frank. Like, that just shows how instead of having their finger on the pulse, it is clearly jammed up their collective asses. And like, it's super frustrating for us as a fan because the problems with this football club on the pitch were evident for all to see, and in the media room were evident for all to see for weeks, if not months. It was almost like a humiliation ritual, Andrew. It was ridiculous, the shit that they made us sit here and watch, and with no real culpability. Like, Thomas Frank was a yes man all the way along and was just like, oh, the standard stock lines over and over and over again about a good second half, and we just can't concede those goals, or we just need to put it all together. Andrew, it wasn't something that it was just like, well, how long are they going to sit here and let us do this, is what it felt like. There was no real way out. And so now, in the wake of it actually happening, you look to pick up the pieces, and we'll come on to Mr. Tudor here in a bit, but you look to pick up the pieces and you turn around and of the architects of the mess, and you go, well, who's actually taking the responsibility for this to ensure that this shit doesn't happen again? right? Obviously, the performance on the pitch is going to come down to the players and what Tudor is able to help them do, and we'll come on to that. But what I'm talking about is we're in the same fucking 18-month cycle that we're in every single year, Andrew. And so now it's just a fucking shambles. Less than a year ago, we had a European trophy celebration. There was an open top bus parade down the high road, and now we're over here talking about Igor fucking Tudor. But like, I don't really know how else you can look at this other than to say it has been a failed endeavor on the men's side from the top down since Daniel Levy's departure.
There's no way around that. You put that exactly right. And I think the thing that stood out to me most about this match against Newcastle was actually the atmosphere. It was a lively atmosphere, but it was also not a very full stadium. And the fans were making it known by not paying the premium prices for an A-tiered match to go on a Tuesday night. I get it. Like, I totally get it, and I respect it, to be quite honest. And at the same time, I also respect the fans who were there because they made their displeasure known, and that's kind of all you can do as a fan at this point. You are at the mercy of, what's going on in this front office.
Well, you have one or two choices, right? You either show up and make your displeasure known, or you don't show up and you stop by and you disengage. And I think fans
chose not to show up.
Which you get, right? And so we get smoked by a team that's in their own free fall. And, we didn't look in that match for most of it, to be fair. Like, I thought Archie Gray had it. You kind of, whenever you're watching a youth player develop, you kind of look for the games to let you know that they belong there, like where they show you that they belong there. And this was very much a match where Archie Gray showed us that he belonged in the Premier League.
I'm so blown away by Archie Gray, not only from what he's done in limited match time this season, but what he did last season. And he's doing basically the same thing he did last season this season, filling in as a 19, 20-year-old in multiple positions where he doesn't actually fit but can make it work because he's just a football player. Like, he's just a pure footballer, and I don't think he's positionless, but he makes himself look so positionless when he's out there, and it's kind of brilliant. He can slot in at right back when you need him to, and no, he's not Pedro Porro at right back, but he's going to do a job. He can play in the midfield.
Wasn't he team of the season? Wasn't he team of the season as a right back in the championship, though?
I mean,
like, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the thing that's pissing me off the most about Archie Gray is that I wanted to see what would happen with Archie Gray if he was developed properly, and he's proving that none of that shit really matters because he hasn't really been developed properly, and he still looks awesome out on the pitch.
Well,
like, he's still doing the right things and gets another goal in this match, and I think it's a shame that this team is relying on a 19-year-old to spark them while playing out of position. Like, I'm pleased that he's showing as well as he is because he's had to deal with a lot of bullshit since coming to Spurs.
Yeah, and I'm not going to argue with you there, Andrew. Like, that's accurate. He has had to deal with a lot of bullshit, but he's also a European champion. Like, he's got a European winners medal. Like, you can't say shit to the kid, in my opinion. He's played wherever you want him. He's going to play for you every week. Whether he gets smoked or whether he does an incredible job, it doesn't matter. He's going to be the same kid doing the best he can to get better each day. I look at Archie Gray as someone who, in a lot of ways, you have to have in every team if you're going to be successful.
Yeah, you need those guys for sure. Two other players I wanted to shout out from this match. And again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this match. I want to talk about what's going on more from a macro than a micro, but I also want to shout out Conor Gallagher because, look, Conor Gallagher's come in and been, I think, exactly what we think Conor Gallagher should be in this team. Just a steady hand, and I thought he really ran his ass off in this game, and I was baffled when he was substituted in the 70th minute, and then somebody told me, well, he was probably gassed. He was doing a lot of running, and I got that, but it was a puzzling substitution for me, especially when you're bringing in Randall Cole Moani for him. I know they were trying to chase the game, but I feel like you have a better chance with Conor Gallagher running at people than you do with Colin Moani running at people. But that's neither here nor there. The man that made that decision is no longer with the club, so I'm not really going to harp on it too much. And then the other thing I wanted to shout at is just how much it sucks that Wilson Odebear suffered a torn ACL in this match, because Wilson Odebear for the last handful of weeks has been really coming on and really showing himself as a right wing. And we all thought this guy can only play on the left side, and he's not good enough to do that. Well, he's played really well on the right side in place of Mohamed Kudus over the last few weeks. And now we won't see him certainly for the rest of this season, probably into much of next season as well.
Probably won't see him until the turn of the year next season, to be fair. So we wish him a speedy recovery. I love what we've seen from Wilson Odebear. He is he is done so much in such a little bit of time. He's the one that has shown flashes. He's the one that, of that crop of French players that we have, he's the one that's actually found the back of the net with a little bit of consistency. Like he's very important in a lot of the build-up play. He's got some assists. Like we definitely wish him a speedy recovery. In terms of Conor Gallagher, Andrew, apparently I have a type. I like a midfielder that runs his face off and fucks shit up, and that's kind of Conor Gallagher, right? Like I love, Højbjerg has been my guy for a long, long time. Like I love myself some Moussa Dembele. Like these guys are not the most polished finishers in the world, right? But I'll tell you what, they're going to run their face off and they're going to fuck some shit up. Sign me up for those guys. So the other guy that I want to call out, and again, this is one of those games like show me you belong here games. Xavi played his face off.
He's continuing to do it. Like we knew it would probably take this long too, didn't we?
Exactly. I said, yeah. We both had this conversation, and we agreed that just like Sonny, when Sonny came in, there were flashes, but it took some time to develop, and eventually the guy kind of comes into his own, and you start to see more consistent good games, and you're like, oh shit, this is the talent that is the reason why you're here. That's awesome that you've been able to make that step up, and then you start to look for consistency. So we're starting to see, the biggest thing for me, Andrew, I'm a physicality guy. The biggest thing for me is that when he first got here, he was getting fucking ragdolled, absolutely tossed about the park. And now, and I don't know if everybody looked around and said, hey, you're going to need to dig in, or if he just like ate his Wheaties or what it was, but he's definitely become more physical and more apt to initiate and take the contact.
I was just going to say, I think he's using his positioning simply much better, too. Like, he's just getting his body into better positions around the ball to protect the ball. It's not even – there's a little bit more physicality there. I've seen it. But for the most part, I think he's just getting smarter as well. In
and that's really what it takes, right?
In this league, yeah, for sure.
That's all you can ask to see.
He's learned a lot, and whether or not he learned from – look – we got to get into it all, but you continually called Thomas Frank like the AP history teacher.
That's him.
Spurs no longer need a teacher; they need a tutor, and that's what they've turned to. So Igor Tudor's coming in, obviously a guy that I don't know a ton about him. I know he was at Juventus last year. It didn't go swimmingly for him. He was only there from March to October, but got into the Champions League last season, which is something. Prior to that, he was at Marseille. He's been at Hajduk Split. He's been at Udinese. He's been at a bunch of different clubs, never for more than 2 years at a time. This is a guy that is coming in to try and stabilize things, and that is all this looks like right now, right?
So just like everybody else who has a podcast on the internet, right? Like as soon as this guy's name came up, I went, who the fuck? Okay, what do I need to know about this guy? And so you start looking around and you start listening to people who know about him and have seen him and this, that, and the other thing. So I did those things, and this is basically what I heard. You're absolutely right in the sense that he didn't work out at Juventus, but what he did do at Juventus was able to get them into Champions League places on the final day of the season when they were mired in 8th place when he got there. The motto situation was a wreck. They lost the dressing room and it was a fucking shambles. And Tudor, who played for Juventus, right, knows what it means to matter for the old lady, as it were, made sure that he came in and stabilized. He plays a back three, so he stabilized that team and was able to help them get those necessary wins. And you know who played an incredibly important role down the stretch for him, scoring huge goals in decisive games? Randall Colomawani. So when you take that into consideration, then you look at, you mentioned Marseille, and that's actually, he was at Marseille longer than he's been anywhere else. And if you remember, he was the head coach on the touchline when my man, the Viking, scored that fucking banger to beat Marseille and go top of the group in the Champions League.
Yep.
He was the one going crazy on the touchline. But the year before, he had guided Marseille to the Champions League spots. And then when he was at Hajduk Split, he won the Croatian Cup for them, which in and of itself is an accomplishment. He's won silverware. And then he was at Udinese for a minute, and he's kind of like the Italian relegation specialist. He was able to help keep them up. And so, like, listen,
English relegation specialist at
right?
this point.
Well, no. So I'm over here looking at this, going, all right. So this is the fucking Croatian Big Sam, like, you know what I mean, or Sean Dyche or whatever. Come back in, play some Route One football, figure out how to shore shit up, make sure you don't give up points, but also score some fucking goals and step on the jugular instead of playing backwards and sideways everywhere we go. And so, I look at this situation and I go, everybody in the British media has their knickers in a knot because he's never been in the Premier League before. And they're like, you've got a relegation battle on your hands, and you've never even managed in this league before. Oh, God, and clutch their pearls as hard as they can. And I'm over here looking at this going, this is a former player. This is a guy who was an international. He's looks like an absolute fucking extra from a Jason Statham movie, Assassin. Right? If you told me that guy absolutely doubles as a contract killer in the offseason, I would say I don't know anything about that, but it wouldn't surprise me, Andrew. So you look at that and you go, he's automatically going to be one of the hardest dudes, and walking into the locker room and coming from the AP history teacher to this guy who's more of an authoritarian, right? He's the security guard on campus, right? That you totally can't tell used to be in the special forces, right? So like you just look at this dude and you go, okay, you know what it means to stay up in one of the top 5 leagues in Europe. You've been to the Champions League for multiple times, for multiple teams across the top 5 leagues in Europe. You also have the ability to take a team that needs a little straightening out. Because, the rumor has it that Thomas Frank lost the dressing room. People were showing up late all the time. Like, that shit that didn't happen under Ange. Ask Yves Bissouma. Otherwise, you sit. Like, they just didn't respect the guy, and I didn't respect the guy. I told you multiple times, like, I'd have a hard time following that man, especially coming from Ange, who's like, give that guy a fucking Old Spice commercial as far as I'm concerned. But, like, when you look at Tudor, he's a guy that isn't afraid of the moment, and I think you need that right now.
So the club made it pretty clear that, the man literally in their statement said the mandate is straightforward: bring organization, intensity, and a competitive edge to the squad at a decisive stage of the campaign. Also known as help us stay up. Like, that's basically what they're saying. They're saying that is your only goal, my friend. Help this team
14
avoid
games.
relegation. It's actually, I think it's only 12 games, which is even worse.
Yeah, okay, so 12 games. So 11 points, as we mentioned on the last pod. 11 points from 12 games.
So go get a bunch of draws. Go nick a bunch of draws if you can, is basically the mandate. Tudor was quoted as saying he understands the responsibility and his focus is clear, yada, yada. I guess my question is, do you see this as just a 6-month appointment? Or
of course I do.
Is there a world where this goes beyond that?
Well, the Tottenham Hotspur, listen, I've watched Spurs board snatch defeat from the jaws of victory more often than I care to admit. So is there a world where this goes longer than that? Oh, you mean for the club that on the heels of one of its greatest seasons ever in 96 points didn't buy anyone for 18 months? Yeah, Andrew, I can see them screwing the pooch on this, and we end up with Igor fucking Tudor to start the season next year. However, I don't believe that that's where we're at. I believe that This is Igor Tudor's opportunity to show his wares as a relegation, avoiding specialist, like a stay-up specialist, right? Like as I mentioned, the Croatian Big Sam, um, at the highest level possible, right? At a Big Six club in the Premier League. So that's a big step in the career for an Igor Tudor. And Tottenham Hotspur can't come out and say, "Hey, Mauricio Pochettino's coming back," because he's under contract with the U.S. men's national team until after the World Cup. However, he's come out and basically said, with giant neon signs behind him, "I'm coming back to Spurs," and it's just a matter of when. Now, the real question, as far as I'm concerned, is how quickly after the end of the men's season are we going to see Johan Lange and Venai Venkatesham absolutely booted out the door? Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
I would be surprised if that happens, to be perfectly honest with you.
Damn it to hell.
And look, Spurs have surprised me before, certainly, but that
rumor has it the board's really mad.
Well, I mean, look, the board wouldn't have stepped in and said you need to fire this manager and change something had they not been really mad. Like, I get that. I do think that this is a good reaction from the board, albeit a little bit of a late reaction because we
maybe
are,
2.5 months.
Yeah, we're looking at 12 matches to save the season, and Spurs only have a 5-point cushion on West Ham. I get it. Same time, you brought up kind of long-term solutions, and that's what I'm curious about because if it's not going to be Tudor long-term, which I don't think it is, who are the names not named Mauricio Pochettino that you would even be interested in? Or is it Poch or bust for you? Because I know there's a lot of people that do feel that way. I am 100% not one of them, but I know Pochettino is going to be a popular name. I just think there's a lot of complicated baggage that comes with that personally.
No. Before you make me answer that question, I need you to expand upon that a little bit. Tell me about said complicated baggage with Mauricio Pochettino for you.
Well, the first thing is that he's got a job, and we look.
His contract runs out at the end of the World Cup. It's not like we're like, it's not like he's got a 2-year contract and we're talking to him.
I understand this, but he has a job currently, so we're talking about a man that has a job and will have a job at least through the summer. And look, as little faith as I have in the U.S. men's national team to actually do anything in the World Cup, they could go into the knockout stages and prolong the stay in the World Cup, meaning it would prolong his tenure as their manager. And I think you want your manager earlier earlier in the summer, especially for a guy who's going to be coming back to a situation that is way different than the last one he was in. And I know I'm saying this like it is a fait accompli, and it is not that. But if it were to happen this way, he's not going to be able to come in until probably early August. Late July. Like that's the timeline we're looking at here, and that is pretty damn late, all things considered. That's my first real big hiccup. My second one is just that feeling of going backwards. There is a little bit of a going back to your ex situation here that I don't always love. I think there were reasons, and there were good reasons to break up with Mauricio Pochettino when Spurs did. I won't say that it was the perfect time to do it, and I will say there were a lot of other complicating factors like not backing him, like you just mentioned. But there is a going backward. Like, I know people say sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. I'm not 100% sold that this is one of those situations. And I also just think that I don't know that Pochettino is the correct. I think there's a lot of love, obviously, between the supporters and Mauricio Pochettino, and it goes quite honestly both directions. I think that can be dangerous at times too. I think it's a little bit, something is a little fishy here. It's a little bit too much of a love fest when it comes to Pochettino a potential return, and that something about that feels just a little strange to me.
What is fishy about that for you?
For me, it ties into that number 2 a little bit. It's like, well, wait, why did this not work out the first time, and how is it going to be different this time? Like, I think we're all ready to jump at the opportunity to bring Poch back because it would feel good. But do things that feel good always benefit us? No. Like, you can't always do what feels good. You have to do what's right sometimes.
Listen, I completely appreciate your perspective on that.
And by the way, I want to be clear. If it happens, I'll get on board. I'll be very, very skeptical about it.
Okay. So what I would say, I just wanted to make sure that I had a fully fleshed out understanding of your perspective, and I'm thankful that you shared it. I think that this is a complicated answer, obviously. Um, Number one, I think that this situation is very similar, actually, to the situation that Mauricio Pochettino came into last time. When he first got there, the squad was old and bloated and full of Eunice Kabuls that needed to take a hike. And that was before Harry Kane was anyone of note. And that's before a Dele Alli or a Young Min's son. That's Jan Vertonghen wanted to leave. He was unhappy. Hugo Lloris wanted to leave. He was unhappy. That was before Toby Alderweireld. Danny Rose was couldn't make it in the Premier League kind of guy. Kyle Walker, there were calls for his head, and because he was so erratic, like this was not the fully fledged out squad that we think of, that made it to a Champions League final. Like Mauricio Pochettino does a really really good job building. Or at least he did a really really good job building a squad from young, talented players and a good mix of heady veterans. And he's got a philosophy and a way of playing. He knows the club. He knows the challenges that come along with working with Tottenham Hotspur. He also knows the fans, and we fucking love him, and he loves us. We know Jesus and the team that he brings, and underneath him, and all of that is familiar and exciting. There is unfinished business, and I feel like I want this to happen. This is it's a little macabre, but I'll just tell you as it is. I want this to happen because I feel like it's inevitable to happen, and I feel like now's as good a time as ever. We're in fucking disarray, and if Papa Poch can come back and give it a crack and have some good shit happen, I'm all for it. However, I'm also a realist, and realistically, we're going to be in the same position 18 months from now, but I'm kind of resigned to expecting that because I don't truly believe that this cycle is going to change and Tottenham is going to achieve its full potential until the Lewis and family and Enoch sell this shit because they don't have what it takes to win on the pitch.
I think all that's extremely fair, and obviously a sale is something we've been hearing about now for more than a year, and another one of those things that like I'll believe it when I see it. Like I can keep hearing the rumors and keep hoping that something moves in that realm, but
I heard more about Amanda Celebi trying to pull the trigger on that this week, right?
Yeah, and we're gonna keep hearing it, especially as when things are going as they are.
But she floated a number through, or I'm sorry, I should say it this way: a number was floated through the media of her belief, something along the lines of, believing that if a number around 3.5 to 4 billion were floated, that the Lewis family would take it. So I don't know if that's a public way of throwing out a negotiation starter, or if they're already in it and that's about the number that they're looking for. Or, I'm not sure what it is, but that number doesn't come out in that context unless they wanted to.
I think the only other place to take this conversation now is after Frank was sacked on Wednesday, and we got word that Ange Postecoglou was doing a podcast. He was doing the Overlaps Stick to Football podcast.
Stick to Football
that day.
So good. So good.
It's funny because I jumped in our group chat and I mostly tongue-in-cheek said, hey, what would you guys think about a 6-month return for Ange Postecoglou? Like, come back, just try and right the ship. And obviously I was mostly joking. And then after I heard the podcast that he was on, I said, well, that's out the window now. Like, there's no chance that happens.
Yeah.
Ange kind of went in on the club on this podcast. For those who hadn't heard it, he was basically quoted as saying that Spurs. He was quoted as saying a lot of the things that I've said on this podcast over the weeks and months and years. That Spurs are only a big club in name. They don't act like a big club. They are financially and from a stadium standpoint a big club. Well, let's come on to it because Ange said a lot of things that a lot of people agree with, and I think that makes, again, it's one of those things that makes us feel good for being right. I don't want to be right in this situation. I don't like what I'm saying.
Well, I came here to eat a little bit of crow, and on this particular topic,
I'll step aside, hand you the fork and I
appreciate that. what I've realized is the things that I complain about the club doing make them not a big club. And that's where we're at. And that's what Ange let me know about. Because as you sit there and you listen to a man who was in charge of our football club, a man who got to hand Sun Heung-min the armband, say that after that first year when we finished fifth and I went to the club and I was excited and I said, we need Semenyo and we need Mark Gay and we need, these guys. And they bought me Dom Solanke and three teenagers. I went, well, this is the same shit Mauricio Pochettino was bitching about 10 years ago. Boss, I need a new washing machine. Well, I bought you three dryers because they were on sale. Like, well, do you know what I mean? Like, that I look at and I go, that is a systemic issue. And when you have that way of going about it, and he said, and Ange even said what I've said on this podcast numerous times, which is when you don't pay the wages that the top players expect and deserve, you don't get the top players. You get the bargain bin upside players that'll play for a lower base and a higher potential return on incentives.
Yeah.
A la James Madison.
Yeah. And it's funny. The other thing he said during this interview was he talked a little bit about his relationship with Daniel Levy and how there was not much of one, and pointed out that he thinks that Mauricio Pochettino is probably the only manager who really was able to get close to Daniel Levy. And taking it briefly back to the Mauricio Pochettino of it all, that's why I think this is even more awkward for Mauricio Pochettino if he does come back, because there's no longer a Daniel Levy here to, have in place as someone on your side. Like, this is a new regime. It's a new ownership, for lack of a better term. There's a lot of new with the club. So if Pochettino does come back, it's not like you're putting him right back in the same place that he was. But when it comes to Ange, I'm telling you, I watched that while nodding my head and also like pinching myself, because I don't want to feel this way. Like, the whole being right thing does nothing for me. I want it to fucking change. And the fact that he has to publicly say the things that he did in order to get anyone to listen. And also I see people going off about how he was wrong to say these things. Look, he was wrong to say these things if he wants to get a job again with Tottenham Hotspur, or maybe even in the Premier League at all. But I don't think that's really Ange's concern. I don't. I think Ange was asked a question, and he, as he is wont to do, answered it very honestly, because he's a very blunt and honest figure. He's gonna say what he thinks, especially when he's not at risk of losing a job. I could tell he was biting his tongue a lot. When you look back at some of the things he said in this podcast and then look back at some of the press conferences, you can tell this is a man that had great restraint during his time here. Great restraint. Because he would have wanted, he needed to be on his best behavior to try and keep the train on the tracks. And even he could not do it because of the ultimate conductors of those trains.
What would have been? What could have been, Andrew, if we were actually run by competent sporting people as opposed to businessmen?
Wouldn't that be
nice? That's kind of where we're at right now. Is I understand more than anything else the need to run a successful business as a professional sports team. But there has to be an intermediary layer between sportsmen and businessmen. There has to be an amalgamation of both in some capacity that exists within the club in order to bridge the gap between the business and the sporting. And right now, there are business people making football decisions and football people trying to negotiate business deals that are not going well.
Well, and I think that with what you just said, I think when everyone heard that Daniel Levy is leaving the club last summer, they thought, okay, finally, we're going to get someone who's a little bit more focused on the football rather than the business side. Thus far, I've seen no evidence from Vinay Venkatesham that he is fully focused on the football side, except when you look at the women's team, which I am all for.
What's what he did at fucking Arsenal anyway.
Right, but people also care about the men's team, and that has completely
funny
fallen
story
by the wayside.
And listen, you don't need to tell me, sir. I'm the one watching these matches on a weekly basis, and I look at that and go, these are not competent football decisions. The fact, Andrew, that it came out reportedly that in the wake of Frank being let go, that they wanted to keep him. They being Lenga and Benai. Like, it just shows the ineptness with which the sporting decisions are being made at this football club. Andrew, I don't know what to do as I look at this and go, how is this going to get better under this leadership? I don't see it. I don't see it.
I have no evidence as of yet, but I'm always happy to be proven wrong, 100%.
We want to be wrong. I want to be wrong.
Yeah, for sure. I want to say one last thing about Ange before we talk about Spurs women putting 7 past Aston Villa, which I'm still trying to get my mind around. Ange spoke a little bit in this podcast about the lead up to the Europa League final against Manchester United last spring. And look, ignore his awkward breakfast encounter with Daniel Levy. I'm not really interested in that. Daniel Levy, I think, was an awkward guy. I think it was always going to be awkward between them. He spoke a lot about pointing out to the players that in the halls at Hotspur Way, there are photos of clubs who won things. The teams that won things have their photos in the hallways, and a lot of those photos are in black and white. And he talked about his motivational tactic for getting this club across the line, pointing out that there are no photos on that wall of Luka Modric and Gareth Bale and Harry Kane, and at the time, there was not one of Heung-min Son. And he talked about the way that he was able to motivate that team in particular to the 1-0 victory in the Europa League final and get them across the line for a trophy. And I thought that embodied everything about what the Ange Postecoglou era was. It was all motivation. It was all he was the rah-rah guy. And tactics be damned, he didn't always have the right tactics, but he had the belief in the players, and the players, more importantly, much more importantly, had the belief in him. And I think that was the whole reason that they were able to get it across the line in that final. I'm not saying it was solely down to him pointing at some pictures on the wall, but his whole mindset and his whole managerial tactic of being that motivator, I think, was extremely crucial. And personally, I feel forever indebted to Ange Postecoglou for knowing that that was what it was going to take to get those guys across the line.
Ange Postecoglou will forever hold a special place in my heart as the first manager that I've got to see at Tottenham Hotspur win a trophy. And the way that he did it is fucking legendary. It will be things that we tell our grandkids about. No. He looked directly at that reporter in the face and said, I always win something in my second season. We're going to be telling these stories forever. And there's a clip that always comes out of him where he says, and like I've always told you, you're going to be the group. You're going to be the ones to get it done. He instilled that in them at the very beginning. And that was something that he pushed for and rode with them on. We had good cup runs under Ange in addition to a 5th place finish and a Europa League win. You can't look at Ange's Ange is the first manager that I've really seen embody the Bill Nick quote. Well, even our, failures will have within them the echoes of glory. And you think about that Chelsea match and the 9 men and the high line and fuck Michael Oliver and the whole bit. And that was Ange to a T. It's just who we are, mate. And we were Vibes FC. And that's the thing is that, when I say sporting people making sporting decisions versus business people making sporting decisions, as a sportsman, you look at that and you go, well, fuck yeah. I mean, the guy won us a trophy. We got to give him at least the beginning of next year. And then we fire him mid-season if it's shit. And it's no worse than where the fuck we are now, Andrew. And so I look at that and go, how can you, a sportsman wouldn't make that decision 9 out of 10 times from my perspective. A sportsman would reward the efforts and the way that Ange got it across the line with extending that contract at least another year or honoring the beginning of it or whatever it is. When we chose to not do that, I think we sealed our fate for this season. And I said as much on this very podcast. And now here we are looking Igor square in the face
Well, and Ange made it a
going what
point.
could have been.
Yeah, and Ange really did point out in the podcast too that Spurs were not actually in a relegation battle last season, and a lot of people do
No.
tend to forget that. Like I know they finished 17th, one spot
17th, and
above,
I don't know how, right?
but guess what? They were never actually in a relegation scrap.
No.
They were well clear of the drop. This season, totally different story. There are 5 points separating them and the 18th position in West Ham, and there are 12 games to play. Igor Tudor has a lot of work to do. There's no other way to put it. One team that is not going to be battling any kind of relegation threat this season, though, is Spurs Women. They are extremely solidly middle of the table. In fact, top half of the table.
Yeah,
if
top
you
five.
want to talk about five. They are really, really firmly entrenched in that 5 spot. A 7-3 victory at Villa Park against Aston Villa on Sunday. And I think the most amazing part of this was that it was 6 different goal scorers, and 3 of the goal scorers, it was their first goal for the club. Talking about Mika Hamano,
her celebration was the best.
Yes,
Mika Hamanos.
and Julie Blackstad, all getting their first goals for Spurs. Tinka Tamberg came off the bench and got 2 goals, including
The brace.
an absolute ripper of a rebound shot into
Buddy.
the back of the net. Spurs came out in this match and just kind of put the gas pedal down right from jump, and even the goals that Villa got were extremely against the run of play. The only real thing Villa had in this match was to counterattack and hope to catch somebody sleeping, and they did it twice. And the third goal they got was honestly just a mistake by Liz Kopp. She delivered a pass poorly, and they got beat by it. But Spurs, the thing about this match that was kind of cool was Spurs probably could have been a little bit even looser on defense, and they were still going to be able to score more. Like, this was an NBA All-Star game level of offense in this game as we speak on the same day of the NBA All-Star game. Like, these ladies were just running up and down the pitch, and there were chances galore. Spurs took 27 total shots in this match, 12 of them on target, and put 7 of those 12 shots on target by the keeper for goals. That is a remarkable scoring rate.
Well, dude, the one player I wanted to shout out, and obviously she kind of gets lost in the shovel with Tika Tamberg coming off the bench and scoring a rocket and a brace to boot. But Olivia Holt actually had a great game. She had an assist and a goal, and like it was. I came out last week and said we were missing teeth. We were missing someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck, missing Jess Naz and missing Drew Spence. And we needed someone there to pick up the slack. Boy, did they ever. I don't know shout to them if they listened to the podcast and heard, thank you. We appreciate it. And we're excited to see what you do next week. Good shit.
Well, even Martin Ho pointed out the fact that, man, if they had just finished like this last week against Chelsea, who knows? Because that was the challenge all week, was just be more clinical in front of the
be
goal.
more ruthless.
And they were in this match, obviously, in putting 7 by. So Spurs do hold on to 5th place. They're going to be firmly entrenched there. In fact, they are 10 points clear of London City Lionesses for 6th place. So they have a healthy lead on the 5th position. They are level on points with Arsenal right now, who sit 4th. But Arsenal, of course, have the 2 matches in hand. Their match today was postponed due to a frozen pitch. But Drew Spence also served the 2nd game of her 3-match ban in this one, so no Drew Spence for this one. But the thing I also really liked about this match was when it was finally and firmly out of hand, Martin Ho was able to get some other players on, including Molly Bartrip coming in for Toko Kogo, which is going to be really important here in a few weeks because Kogo will be going off to the Asian Cup with Japan, as will Hamano with Japan, and we're also going to be losing, more than likely, Claire Hunt to Australia. So you're going to need some center back depth, and Molly Bartrip needs to get some playing time under her belt, and she was able to do a little bit of that in this match, which is another real positive. So I was glad to see that's the other thing about what Martin Ho's been able to do with this club, though, and especially with all the signings that came in January, is there's actual depth there now, and you can make these substitutions, and the levels are not really dropping off like they used to.
Yeah, I completely agree. She'll also get another chance coming up in the cup match here on Monday, I would imagine.
Yeah, cup match next Monday against London City, and that's going to be that's a really interesting one because London City are going to be a tricky team, even though they are not quite as flying as I think most people would have expected them to be here in their first WSL season, but a round of 16 FA Cup tie against them, I think, is a very good challenge. And yes, that one is going to be played on Monday. I guess that's Monday, what is that, the 23rd? That one was selected for broadcast, so hopefully folks can get their eyes on that one. The other big news out of Spurs Women this week is they did sign Evelina Summanen to a new long-term contract. The 27-year-old just reached 100 appearances with the club about a week or two ago. So a new long-term contract after joining originally in January of 2022. So Summanen has been another one of those pieces that you can build around. And she's not going to be a superstar by any stretch, but she has that ability to just be an extremely solid player and the type of player you not only need to be in a starting role from time to time, but just for depth. And I'm telling you, I think the biggest difference between this club and last year's club is that depth, and I hope they continue to add in the summer and see where this. I'm not putting this season away. There are still 6 WSL matches after today to be played, and I still don't think Spurs are making that Champions League run. And I'm not putting this season away, but I'm so excited for the summer to see where this team can actually grow even further because of what they've already done this season.
So I absolutely agree with you that despite the giant strides that they've taken so far, I don't think they're going to close the gap on Chelsea or that third spot in general. There is a current gulf in class that has to be bridged. And again, to your point, I think that'll get addressed in the summer. However, I think a deep cup run this year can do a lot for the confidence of a team with a lot of new signings. I think that you can galvanize around a cup run with new players in a way that you can't necessarily over the course of a season, right? So I think with the cup run, that if they come out and they're able to have a good showing against the Lionesses on Monday, I think that sets up for a really solid end of the season, regardless of whether they can close the gap on that third spot or not.
Yeah, it's exciting times. If you are down on the men's team right now, turn on the women because they're playing an exciting brand of football.
It's fun.
They're attacking. The patterns are there. I've really just enjoyed it. And despite the fact that
no one drinks out of an Arsenal cup.
Right, no one drinks out of an Arsenal cup. And you know what's wild too is they played this match I mentioned at Villa Park a day after. I don't know if you saw that FA Cup match at all between Villa and was it Newcastle on Saturday, but they played on the same pitch and it was a little bit beat up after that FA Cup match. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. But yeah, things to look forward to on the Spurs women's side of things for certain.
Last thing is you asked a question regarding the men's side that we didn't get a chance to address, and so I'll bring it out to you. If not Mauricio Pochettino, right? If for whatever reason those demands are too great on the men's side, who would I want to bring in? Well, I would say that we have to consider Marco Klose from RB Leipzig and just completely just succumb to the Leipzig like that approach to the RB approach and just say, all right, we're gonna go this route. We're going to hang out 6, 7, 8 in the table for the next 6 years while we build this club. And that's the approach we take.
That would be a dream, 6, 7, 8.
No, I refuse to look at this football club and say that I know that we finished 17th last year, but that's another thing that Ange again reiterated. Like, he absolutely tanked the league in order to make that cup run. And when you look at the fact that they didn't buy him anybody in the summer that he wanted, and they didn't buy him anybody in the January window that he wanted, then yeah, dude, you had to, as soon as that window shut, when he was like, well, I know that I had an idea that I was going to get fired then, late January, early February. Well, to me, what that says is the window closed, and he said, if you don't get me anybody in here, I'm going to fucking tank the season and get this cup.
Yeah,
and they were like, well, if you're going to do that, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but they said, if you're going to do that, well, then you're out of here at the end of the year. And he was like, well, fuck you, watch this. The other thing is that I think, knowing Daniel Levy and the way that he structured contracts in the past, I guarantee you that Ange had a huge, huge multiplier or bonus in his contract for a cup win and for Champions League qualification. and he got both of those motherfuckers.
He ticked both of those boxes, that's for damn sure. That is going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. We are going to be back with you all next week following the Arsenal match, perhaps following that London City FA Cup tie for the women on Monday. We'll see how schedules work out, but we will certainly squeeze all the results in. And yeah, the first look at Igor Tudor. I'm so pumped that his first match gets to be in a North London derby.
Dude,
that sounds like a great recipe.
If he two-footed Mikel Arteta on the touchline just to start, like, before the game at zeros, if he just two-footed that guy and gets a 3-match ban and goes sits in the stands with Cootie, that would go so far with his fan base. Oh, anyway.
You can follow Todd at TC_show. You can follow me at Aesthetica. Follow us at Tottenham Depot on all the socials for the latest podcast updates. We will talk to you next week. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.